This morning, I drank my coffee and I had a think. I believe that when your curiosity dies, this is when you lose your sense of finding meaning in your life. It's when you stop exploring. The reason we were so hopeful and happy as kids was because we didn't know everything, but we actually had fun finding out. Whenever a little kid asks why something is the way it is, they always do it with a sense of excitement, don't they? It doesn't matter if something seems boring on the surface. The more you learn about it, the more you want to find out. That's just what it means to start something. There's always an inherent desire to find out the rest. It's not always easy to keep this curiosity, and we get so exhausted by our daily grind that we slowly sink into complacency and just accept everything around us as being the way it is. It is what it is becomes our mantra, and we live to exist. But to truly be alive is to see what is beyond our own inventory of comprehension. As children, we possessed very high levels of neuroplasticity. Kids not only learn faster than adults because of their innate curiosity, but the information affects them on a far deeper level than it affects us. For example, if you were a fan of Star Wars as a child, it will likely have a special place in your adult heart as well. On the other hand, if you start watching a show at, say, age 40, it just won't have the same impact as it would if you were still little, unless the show was based on something you already liked, like The Mandalorian. I will be the first to admit that I remember more about the cartoons I watched as a kid than from 12 years of education, and I was actually a good student. Not to brag or anything, but I was also in all the gifted classes until high school. Thank you all. You're wonderful. You're a very wonderful audience. I appreciate all of this. Okay guys, seriously, I gotta move on. Let me finish. Science taught us that our brains stop developing around age 25. You could still learn, of course, you can always improve yourself and expand your knowledge, but the things that happen to you from this point on will not imprint upon you with the same intensity it did when your brain meat was still growing. For example, you can probably guess with some degree of accuracy what year someone was born based on their music choices. For instance, if you were born in, say, 1975 to 1985, you probably don't like anything later than 2005 and think 90s metal and alternative rock kicks more ass than any decade past, present, and future. If you were born 1965 to 1975, there's a pretty good chance that you love 80s music and have a few 90s one-hit wonders that you play every now and then, but everything after 1999 could just fuck all the way off. If you were an 80s kid, I want you to imagine a familiar scene. You awaken one hazy Saturday morning in your Smurfs pajamas and sleepily step out of bed. You quietly open your door and tiptoe down the stairs because you don't want to wake mom and dad. They don't really feel too happy with you watching those, in their words, brain-rotting cartoons, so you keep the volume low. You pour your Lucky Charms into your favorite popcorn bowl and water it down with some 2% milk and just a little chocolate milk because no one's looking. Finally, you whisper to yourself, the week is finally over and I can watch cartoons in peace. What more could you want? You settle in with your cereal bowl and get ready to lose yourself in animated tranquility when you're suddenly interrupted by the phone ringing. Your ringtone is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme from the 1980s cartoon. Your boss is calling because he needs you to come in on your day off, so you tell him you're out of town for the weekend visiting some old high school friends and you won't be back until Monday morning. He grudgingly accepts your answer and wishes you a happy weekend, even though you're pretty sure he's going to make you work overtime on Monday to cover for Erica, who is probably going to call out again because Monday's payday and she always does that, and boy does that just piss you off. Speaking of cartoons, my favorite show until I was about 12 was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Everything about them appealed to me. They were funny, they beat up the bad guys, they had cool weapons, they ate pizza, they surfed, they played video games, and even had video games made about them. Tons of them. Remember the arcade game? Instant classic. Instant classic. Magnifique. They also had a really catchy theme song that will absolutely get my channel obliterated if I even share 1 second of it, despite being freely available on YouTube as I write this script, but, you know, fuck me, right? It was among the first animated children's shows to be marketed to a slightly older audience, especially teenagers. The Turtles weren't adults, not children, but teenagers. Teenagers identified with them and younger viewers idolized them because they had personalities that young adults could relate to. Leonardo appealed to kids who just wanted to see motherfuckers get sliced in half. Donatello actually showed young people that being highly intelligent and knowing how to fight are not mutually exclusive, so he was a cartoon icon for nerds everywhere. Michelangelo was the one who always brought energy and happiness wherever he went and loved partying and pizza more than anyone. And Raphael was the funniest guy in the room, but really moody and sarcastic, so he appealed to a lot of kids who grew up dealing with some real shit. This was when cartoons for kids made the transition from entertainment to culture. It wasn't just a new show, it was a new generation. It was the Ninja Turtles generation. The awesomeness that was the Turtles wasn't limited to the cartoon either. Action figures, movies, clothes, costumes, concerts, you get the idea. It inspired so many shows with a similar premise that you could even say it started a whole genre. In 2023, it's pretty common to watch cartoons as an adult, even if they're not necessarily meant for mature audiences. While it's probably impossible to tell, there are almost as many mature or teen-rated cartoons as there are for young audiences. But even still, many of these shows are able to be enjoyed by just about anyone who will give them a chance. Shows like Gravity Falls, Regular Show, and Avatar are just a few examples I can name off the top of my head. Guys who grew up watching Turtles most likely carried some fondness for it into their adulthood. Even if they didn't specifically watch the show, its effects were felt in what followed. You saw more cartoon characters acting like real people and making witty remarks about their situations in shows like Tiny Toon Adventures, which often took jabs at pop culture, including the Turtles. In a weird way, it's almost like Ninja Turtles walked so the Simpsons could run. You can even find some similar personality traits in the characters. Michelangelo and Raphael were like Bart, while Donatello and Leonardo were like Lisa. And that show was popular among children and adults alike because, like Turtles, it had relatable characters. Nowadays, The Simpsons is like that aging family member that you considered for years putting in a nursing home, but guilt keeps you from actually doing it because they were very special and dear to you before the senility and dementia turned them into a shell of their former self. No pun intended. If you grew up with Turtles, you probably grew up with The Simpsons, probably South Park, then Family Guy, then Adult Swim, and now that TV is dead, you can watch anything you want whenever you want. On the other hand, now you have to actually seek out what's worth watching because the programming schedule isn't around to guide you anymore. This brings me to my next point. Like I said in the Velma review, my main source of entertainment is YouTube, and that comes from streamers but also reviewers. They often have valuable insights about a diverse range of entertainment, including cartoons, and my first example of someone from the Ninja Turtles generation is the Nostalgia Critic, who, love him or hate him, capitalized on his fondness for entertainment he grew up with and made a career out of simply talking about it in a humorous way. But if he stopped putting those obnoxious, unfunny skits in his reviews, I might actually watch him again. Adam from Your Movie Sucks is another example, except he takes a more nuanced and objective approach because he's heavily dedicated to exploring his target as thoroughly as possible and makes observations that can only come from deep analysis of the media. He also doesn't try to be funny, and that's what makes him funny. The Turtles generation also had a hand in creating a lot of our movies and games. James Rolfe grew up watching our stuff, made a career reviewing our stuff, and even turned around and made his own movie based on the character he made to review the stuff in the first place. The Lego Movie, Detective Pikachu, Stranger Things, and various reboots like Sonic the Hedgehog are some examples of entertainment made by and for the Turtles generation. If you ever played Undertale, for example, you notice traces of older media in there, like how Papyrus is like a happy-go-lucky version of Skeletor, and that the art style and characters look like they were inspired by Earthbound on the SNES. There's a good chance you personally know or are even pretty close to someone from the Turtles generation. They probably own an ancient console like the SNES or Genesis, even if they don't play video games at all anymore. They often keep up with entertainment news, but stay the absolute fuck away from celebrity gossip. Instead, their focus is on who is directing, who is acting, and how faithful it is to the original because they will always see something if it's a remake of something they already enjoy. As for sports, they might watch them, but they probably don't play them. As co-workers, they're the kind of people that probably have a lot of jokes and quips, and they make everyone feel a little happier when they're there. They also grew up when video games were unfairly, unreasonably, ridiculously hard, so they know how to handle challenges, and this translates very well into their work ethic. They will always laugh at a good Simpsons reference, and were probably instant fans the first time they watched Rick and Morty, but felt deeply conflicted after Justin Roiland's heinous sins were exposed before God in the court of public opinion. Even Rick and Morty was inspired by Back to the Future, and now shows are coming out that were inspired by Rick and Morty, so it's like an infinite loop of shows inspiring shows. You can identify these kinds of people in a crowd based on their dress style. They wear what makes them comfortable and ignore fashion trends and designer clothes, but you'll find them wearing usually a t-shirt with their favorite characters, so others out there can identify them and strike up a conversation because they have a lot to say when it comes to their favorite entertainment. This isn't limited to only men either. You've probably met women from the Turtles generation too. You might find her managing a GameStop or giving a 2-hour video essay on why Fry is actually still cryogenically frozen in the year 2000, and the entirety of Futurama is an endless dream that he can't wake up from. That's just a couple minor examples, but they're actually everywhere. They just have to hide their geekiness because they get a lot of unwanted attention from socially impaired men pursuing sex. So they either seek refuge in online groups of other frustrated women or go in the other direction and simply own it and decide to make the most out of it by streaming and letting men donate hundreds of dollars for armpit pictures or for them to say,
"Ooh, senpai, you're the Yukiteru Amino to my Yuno Gasai, ooh-woo."
It's weird. The internet is weird. Men will pay for anything. I don't understand it. The Turtles generation tends to avoid the subject of politics because of the divisive effect it has on people. Their overall attitude is that cooperation and teamwork is more constructive and healthy than petty squabbling over political parties, but they will vehemently defend their favorite childhood show if an internet critic shits on it. That's when they will type up an entire manuscript in the comments to tell you how wrong your opinion is. They're also pretty likely to be good parents because they have a fondness for the culture they grew up with, and they want their children to also share that culture, even if their kids might not appreciate it quite as much as they did growing up. Still, it's always great when a family spends more time together, and it's actually kind of beautiful that this is happening. So what does the future hold in store? I don't know, I'm just some middle-aged guy talking out of his ass, but I can take a guess at least. There will continue to be remakes upon remakes until the general public kinda just gets sick of it and demands something new. By then, AI will have grown so advanced that it will become the next best writer of our time. It's going to be like having your own magic genie who already knows what you want before you even wish for it. It will feel like a godsend because we will never be bored, but without common interest in pop culture, people will detach from one another. After that becomes the norm, I'm not even sure if people will talk to one another anymore, since AI will have mapped out the entire human psyche so well that the algorithm will replace every friend or lover you could ever possibly need. It will be a symbiotic relationship of man and machine. The machine will always need man because it will always need a purpose. No matter how advanced AI becomes, it is always going to be limited to the desires of its user. Likewise, man will always need mental stimulation and companionship, or else sink into morbidity and self-loathing. So the two will be locked together in a codependent cycle in which both are simultaneously both slave and master. With man and machine forever bound to each other without the slightest desire to break the cycle, nature will finally reclaim its place as ruler of Earth. If this outcome sounds like doom and gloom to you, it's really all about your perspective. In this future, every living person is in their own unique heaven, and there's no such thing as conflict or war, and Earth will be a vibrant, lush paradise like the Garden of Eden. Like I said, I'm just some guy and this is my opinion. What do you think, though? I welcome all feedback and love to see what people think of my videos. All your criticism is valid because it came from a place of sincerity, even if I don't agree with it. I actually had a lot of fun making the Velma video, and I wanted to make another video almost right after I uploaded that one, but I had some writer's block, so I'm happy I got to make this one. You've all been wonderful, and I hope you all have a great night. And there, by the grace of God, go I.